Inside a submarine, Navy Culinary Specialists serve as the absolute final lifeline, preventing 150 isolated sailors aboard a $3 billion nuclear warship from total psychological collapse. How do these operators safely transform over 40,500 meals of frozen cargo into critical tactical morale when a single open flame guarantees an instantaneous, fiery death? Let's dive into the crushing abyss and discover the harsh, top-secret reality of the silent service.
Right now, at this exact second, hundreds of feet beneath the crushing, pitch-black pressure of the Pacific Ocean, an Ohio-class ballistic missile submarine glides in absolute lethal silence. This 18,000-ton apex predator is a terrifying marvel of advanced nuclear engineering, armed with 20 Trident 2D5 missiles heavily capable of ending entire civilizations. Yet, beyond the thick steel bulkheads and the glowing nuclear reactor, the most unforgiving variable on board isn't a mechanical failure or an enemy sonar ping. It is the primal, ticking clock of human biology belonging to 150 American sailors, sealed in the suffocating blackness of the ocean for 90 days, completely erased from the surface world. Their bodies require a relentless, precisely calculated lifeline of sustenance to survive the deep. Let the brutal mathematics of this isolation sink in. 150 men requiring 3 high-calorie meals a day for 90 days equates to exactly 40,500 individual meals. Unlike a massive, sprawling Nimitz-class aircraft carrier that consistently receives weekly underway replenishments via heavy MH-60S Seahawk helicopters, this lone submarine gets absolutely nothing. From the second the massive steel logistic hatch is dogged down at Naval Submarine Base Kings Bay, the external supply chain ceases to exist. Every single gram of protein, every multivitamin, and every grain of rice must already be on board. They are packed tightly into a pressurized tube that is already choked with Mark 48 torpedoes and complex weapon systems.
This is not mere storage. It is a high-stakes, uncompromising war against organic decay. If the rigid preservation strategy breaks down, if rot takes hold in the shadows, the 90-day mission violently collapses. To stretch the absolute limits of survival, the Navy employs aggressive food preservation tactics. Hundreds of pounds of raw protein are strictly vacuum sealed, violently stripping away the oxygen that fuels bacterial growth and freezer burn.
Massive quantities of dry goods are hermetically sealed in heavy-duty mylar bags, completely preventing moisture contamination from the submarine's highly controlled, yet inherently humid atmospheric scrubbing systems. Even the humble egg becomes a masterclass in advanced survival logistics. The Navy utilizes specifically sourced, unwashed, farm-fresh eggs because their natural protective cuticle remains perfectly intact. Thousands of raw eggs can survive for months at room temperature without rotting inside the bulkheads. With the cargo mathematically secured, the logistics strategy dictates a merciless hierarchy of consumption based on precise biological degradation rates. Fresh produce is a fleeting luxury, deliberately engineered to disappear fast. Highly perishable items like fragile lettuce, soft berries, and fluid milk are ruthlessly targeted for consumption within the first 7 to 10 days. As the submarine dives deeper into its patrol cycle, the crew transitions to hardier provisions like thick-skinned oranges, crisp apples, and dense root vegetables, buying another 2 to 3 weeks of psychological comfort. Then comes the true climax of this logistical nightmare. Around the 3rd week, the submarine violently hits a terrifying psychological threshold, known informally across the fleet as fresh food bingo. The last crisp apple is sliced, and the final drop of real milk is poured. From this specific moment forward, for the remaining 69 days of crushing isolation, the crew's physical survival relies entirely on those preserved stores. They must sustain their combat readiness on rock-hard frozen blocks, chemically dehydrated powders, and heavily processed canned combat rations. The Navy has successfully managed to hoard over 40,000 meals inside a pressurized, lethal war machine. But hoarding raw, frozen rations in the dark is only half the battle. How exactly do you safely transform thousands of pounds of rock-hard ingredients into morale-saving feasts when open fire is strictly forbidden on board? Step through the watertight bulkhead into the galley of an Ohio-class submarine, the most heavily weaponized kitchen engineered by the Department of Defense. This highly classified stainless steel bunker occupies 120 square feet, roughly the size of a standard walk-in closet. Within this claustrophobic metal box, elite sailors orchestrate a relentless industrial food production line. They safely convert thousands of pounds of frozen caloric bricks into exactly 40,500 meals. On a surface vessel, a kitchen fire is an emergency, but inside a sealed submarine, it is an apocalyptic, fatal death sentence. A rogue spark interacting with concentrated electrolytic oxygen generators could instantaneously flash fire the compartment. Toxic carbon monoxide gets brutally recirculated through the ventilation system, suffocating the crew within minutes. Therefore, the primary doctrine of submarine culinary operations is terrifyingly simple and ruthlessly enforce zero open flames. To eliminate this catastrophic combustion risk, the Navy utilizes specialized, heavily modified electric culinary hardware. The culinary specialists rely on brutal 440-volt flat-top griddles, massive convection ovens, and hyper-efficient pressurized steamers. These militarized appliances draw raw electrical power directly from the submarine's S-8G pressurized water nuclear reactor. When a chef cranks up the intense heat to sear beef, they are quite literally cooking with the immense power of split atoms. Traditional deep fryers are strictly forbidden by Naval Sea Systems Command, as violently pitching oceans could spill boiling oil. Instead, naval engineers designed brilliant mechanical workarounds, utilizing high-velocity air frying technology and 10-gallon steam-jacketed kettles locked firmly onto solid steel bulkheads. Every piece of heavy culinary equipment is bolted directly to the deck and reinforced to withstand violent inertial shifts. The galley architecture prevents lethal industrial accidents when the warship rapidly alters depth. Operating this high-voltage kitchen requires a rare breed of American sailor. These are the United States Navy Culinary Specialists, operating under the grueling, highly coveted submarine warfare designation. They endure punishing psychological evaluations at the Naval Submarine Medical Research Laboratory and survive years of specialized training before stepping inside a pressure hull. A surface cook deals with spacious galleys, but a Submariner CS masters extreme spatial geometry, heat management, and tactical endurance. There is no daylight, no night, and zero downtime inside the metallic belly of the beast, completely isolated from the outside world. The submarine operates on a merciless rhythm of strict watch cycles, dictating that the tiny galley can never power down. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, and a midnight ration known as mid-rats flow in a continuous sequence. If a single meal service is delayed by 15 minutes, the operational tempo of the 18,000-ton warship severely degrades. Cooking at a stable angle is difficult enough, but submarines routinely execute extreme tactical maneuvers known as angles and dangles. Without advance warning, the massive vessel might violently pitch up or dive down at terrifying 25-degree inclines to evade hostile acoustic threats. When the steel deck suddenly drops out, the culinary specialists instinctively brace themselves heavily against scorching counters. They forcefully hold down boiling pots and sliding trays of hot food.
Suddenly, the tactical general alarm blares, shattering the mechanical hum, signaling an emergency deep dive. The deck sharply tilts, instantly transforming the narrow, grease-slick kitchen floor into a highly dangerous steel slide. A junior culinary specialist grips the heat-resistant latch of the convection oven with one hand, while pinning a massive 50-pound tray of searing chicken down with his hip. In this adrenaline-soaked moment, the kitchen staff heroically holds the line against all odds.
These elite sailors conquer the brutal, unforgiving physics of the deep ocean, turning a tiny metal box into the beating heart of the submarine. Their meticulously crafted meals serve as the only reliable anchor for a crew trapped in an endless, sunless void. They do not just provide daily calories. They expertly forge the impenetrable psychological armor that keeps 150 warriors lethally focused, transforming frozen supplies into tactical endurance. They have mastered the nuclear hardware, mathematically defeated the storage crisis, and survived the terrifying gravitational shifts. The crew remains well fed, the reactor hums perfectly, and the silent deterrent patrol continues flawlessly. But how exactly do these highly trained chefs mentally manipulate an isolated crew when the exact same frozen ingredients must be served for the 70th consecutive day?
Welcome to the psychological battlefield of extreme menu fatigue, deeply known across the silent service as food apathy. When 150 elite warfighters are locked inside an 18,000-ton steel tube for 3 months, the days violently bleed into a monotonous blur. Harsh fluorescent lighting and the relentless mechanical hum of the nuclear reactor slowly erode their mental endurance. If the galley serves an uninspired, repetitive menu, the crew's operational vigilance will rapidly collapse.
This culinary war is inherently fought at a severe biological disadvantage due to the submarine's massive atmospheric scrubbing systems. These machines utilize liquid monoethanolamine to aggressively strip toxic carbon dioxide from the recycled air, leaving a pervasive chemical odor throughout the vessel. This thick almond haze actively suppresses the delicate olfactory receptors of the sailors, because smell is inextricably linked to taste. The 150 crew members experience a severe dulling of their palates. This is precisely where the United States Navy Culinary Specialists prove they are a radically different breed of warfighter. These highly trained operators function as an elite special forces unit of subterranean logistics, armed with spatulas instead of rifles. A Submarine CS meticulously analyzes the crew's deteriorating mental state and aggressively deploys specific flavor profiles to counteract profound fatigue. They are the frontline psychological armor, working brutally long hours in a grease-slicked bunker.
To successfully combat this brutal sensory suppression, the culinary specialists unlock their most fiercely guarded tactical assets. The ship's primary spice locker functions entirely as a high-value munitions dump, mathematically packed to sustain exactly 40,500 meals over the 90-day patrol. The galley aggressively deploys a staggering 40 gallons of fiery Texas peat hot sauce, 50 gallons of concentrated sriracha, and 60 pounds of heavy garlic powder. The chefs deliberately over-season their frozen inventory, dumping 10-pound bricks of smoked paprika into vats to engineer violently vibrant flavor, profiles designed specifically to punch right through the suffocating amine atmosphere.
Beating this severe apathy requires brilliant, calculated textural manipulation. By day 50, the glorious fresh stores are completely gone, leaving the tiny galley heavily reliant on a massive stockpile of 1,500 pounds of identical, rock-hard blocks of deep-frozen chicken. A master culinary specialist will mathematically transform its physical architecture to deceive the palate. On Tuesday, 80 pounds of it is precisely shredded for spicy Mexican fajitas. And by Thursday, another 100 pounds is heavily breaded and deep baked for a fiercely crispy Asian stir fry. This calculated menu manipulation is strictly dictated by uncompromising physiological requirements. A massive machinist's mate, violently wrestling heavy steel valves in the 100-degree engine room, burns massive amounts of metabolic energy, requiring up to 4,000 calories a day. Conversely, a sonar technician sitting completely motionless requires significantly less caloric intake. The Submariner CS must perfectly balance heavy complex carbohydrates for immediate energy alongside dense proteins, ensuring peak lethality across all 150 ranks. When the immense psychological pressure of the crushing deep ocean becomes nearly unbearable, the chefs smartly leverage the profound power of olfactory memory. The galley deliberately initiates the highly strategic baking of 30 loaves of fresh artisan bread and exactly 400 warm chocolate chip cookies. The intoxicating, sweet aroma of baking yeast forcefully overrides the omnipresent smell of machine oil and recycled air. For a magnificent moment, isolated sailors are mentally transported safely back home. Despite these brilliant culinary tactics, the psychological weight of isolation compounds heavily with every passing hour. As the submarine silently grinds toward the exact mathematical midpoint of the 90-day patrol, exhaustion violently grips the crew. Sleep deprivation peaks, and the crushing reality of their classified, sunless existence threatens to break their resolve. The culinary specialists recognize this critical breaking point and prepare to unleash their ultimate, highly classified morale weapon. This covert psychological warfare hits its absolute and spectacular zenith perfectly at day 45. This highly classified morale event is universally revered across the elite submarine fleet as Halfway Night. The culinary specialists finally unlock their most heavily guarded deep freeze vaults, aggressively deploying the absolute pinnacle of naval logistics. Exactly 160 thick-cut, 16-ounce prime ribeye steaks and 320 wild-caught Maine lobster tails are finally unleashed upon the heavily fatigued crew. The tiny galley shifts into maximum overdrive to flawlessly execute this monumental high-protein feast. For one glorious evening, the crushing lethal weight of the Pacific Ocean is entirely forgotten as sailors aggressively devour the spectacular surf and turf. This brilliantly executed celebration is a massive psychological reset, forcefully injecting a huge surge of adrenaline into the warfighters. They emerge violently re-energized, locking back onto the mission with lethal, uncompromising focus. They have successfully fueled the biological engine of the warship and kept the lethal crew razor sharp. But this massive logistical triumph inherently breeds a highly dangerous consequence. Where exactly does the toxic, rotting physical waste of 40,500 meals go when you absolutely cannot open a window? On a surface warship, disposing of rotting waste is a simple logistical afterthought. But inside a sealed pressure hull operating at classified depths, unmanaged organic garbage rapidly transforms into a lethal, toxic threat. As the isolated crew violently burns through their 40,500 meals, discarded packaging, stripped bones, and vegetable peels systematically accumulate. If left unchecked, this rapidly decomposing biomass would release dangerous methane gas and spawn catastrophic, mission-ending bacterial infections.
To neutralize this biological hazard, the submarine operates an industrial-grade machine known as the Trash Disposal Unit. This specialized hydraulic system is a brutal marvel of mechanical engineering, designed to violently compress the crew's refuse. Culinary specialists ruthlessly feed up to 40 pounds of raw organic waste into a 9-inch galvanized steel compactor. With a deafening grind, the hydraulic ram exerts 3,000 pounds of crushing pressure, flattening the garbage into dense, solid cylinders.
The United States Navy cannot simply dump loose trash into the pristine Pacific Ocean. Strict environmental doctrine and acoustic stealth parameters demand a calculated, pressurized deep-water ejection sequence. Compacted trash cylinders are forcefully packed into biodegradable steel mesh bags and weighted with specialized galvanized iron slugs. These negatively buoyant packages are loaded into a vertical airlock tube and violently flushed out of the submarine using pressurized seawater, ensuring they sink rapidly to the dark ocean floor. This pressurized ejection process is dangerous and heavily restricted during sensitive tactical combat operations. Pumping seawater and forcefully ejecting heavy weights creates a massive acoustic signature, momentarily blinding the submarine's sensitive spherical sonar arrays. Therefore, the commanding officer strictly dictates precisely when the culinary specialists are authorized to purge the accumulating waste. Until that tactical window safely opens, the highly compressed, rotting cylinders must be entombed within secure, refrigerated sanitary holding tanks to prevent toxic off-gassing. Beyond mechanical waste disposal, the tiny galley must meticulously maintain an aggressive, hospital-grade chemical sterilization protocol. In an enclosed submarine atmosphere, a single isolated outbreak of a contagious illness like norovirus would catastrophically neutralize the entire warship within 48 hours. The culinary specialists utilize concentrated military-grade chemical disinfectants to violently scrub down every square inch of the stainless steel battlespace. They execute this relentless sterilization utilizing strictly rationed gallons of hyperpure water generated by the reverse osmosis desalination plant.
This profound realization brings us to the ultimate, undeniable truth of the elite submarine force. The nuclear reactor provides limitless propulsion, and Trident 2D5 missiles provide terrifying strategic deterrence. but it is the Navy Culinary Specialist who expertly provides the fundamental human endurance required to execute the 90-day mission. These elite sailors willingly endure the most grueling, physically demanding, and psychologically exhausting watch stations in the armed forces.
They do not wear pilot wings, and they do not operate multi-million-dollar acoustic tracking consoles. Instead, they stand fiercely upon grease-slicked steel decks, battling extreme 100-degree heat, severe sleep deprivation, and the crushing weight of subterranean isolation. They miraculously transform rock-hard frozen blocks into spectacular feasts, violently fending off psychological collapse one meticulously plated meal at a time. Their absolute dedication, unmatched physical resilience, and tactical culinary brilliance keep the most lethal war machines moving. We must stand in unwavering awe of these incredible subterranean warriors. They willingly sacrifice their daylight, fresh air, and personal comfort to ensure the safety and strategic supremacy of the free world. A multi-billion-dollar warship is merely an empty, cold steel shell without the roaring, unbroken fighting spirit of its crew. That unbreakable warrior spirit is forged, heavily fueled, and fiercely protected inside the microscopic, high-pressure confines of the submarine galley. If this classified deep dive into the extreme world of naval logistics blew your mind, we need you in our ranks today. Hit that like button right now to honor the incredible daily sacrifice of these elite submarine chefs. Subscribe to the channel and violently smash the notification bell to instantly secure your front row seat for our next military breakdown. See you next time on the digital battlefield. Out.